Well, I posted my first video. I am recording this one after a very long day, and I almost just walked out and started over tomorrow. I had several triggers today. You know, part of what I am most nervous about when I think of sharing this, what I'm going to share, is the people that I might lose, or the people that will judge me or think that I'm judging them. Just the level of miscommunication that takes place on the internet is concerning for me. However, I got a lot of feedback. Oh, I don't know why my podcast is not. Oh, that's why. I got a lot of feedback from posting that video yesterday and sharing that little small part. I got a lot of feedback, and I'm not the only person that has needed to exercise courage to experience life in a different way. It's all really interesting because I did a lot of things afraid, and in doing a lot of things afraid, I did a lot of things wrong. And there was a time not too long ago where I was beating myself up for it, like, well, damn, Lana, you could have done this better, or you should have done this like this. I'm being very careful with my words right now, and I'll tell you why eventually. But I still have moments where I just recognize that in my growth, there were spots, there were blind spots, emotional blind spots that I had. That was a blind spot. That were blind spots, and so I wasn't necessarily handling things right all the time. And I have prayed about that, and I have asked forgiveness for those things. And they've been hard to navigate, to be honest, because you don't know yourself until you meet yourself for real. And luckily, we meet ourselves daily, right? We rub up against challenges that make us be like, ooh, that didn't feel good, or ooh, I can't believe I said or did that. And those things happen. That's a reality. But there are these parts of life where you really meet yourself. I've had that happen in my life maybe twice, 3 times maybe. One being leaving my marriage. I met myself. That was not easy. And I'm not even going to really get into that process just yet, because there is a whole list of things that happened prior to that. And they started young. So I'm starting at 19-year-old Lana, who, I didn't necessarily have a lot of boyfriends in high school. I had a couple, but I always felt kind of invisible. I always felt kind of like I was popular, but not like the popular girls were. You know what I mean? I was popular in a way that was like the me you know now. If you know me, I've been this my whole life. So I was popular in a way where I've always been very bubbly or personable, and I could really fit in with anybody, any group, but I never felt like I did. I always felt like an outsider. I tried to join different things in high school. Like I ran track for a little bit. I tried out for the basketball team. That was some trash. But I was a high stepper in high school also at Warrensville, and nothing ever fit. Nothing ever felt right. I've always been really expressive and internal, but somehow I can relay my internal world to the external world very fluidly. I've always been like that. I could tell you exactly how I feel and how I got there. So when I think about boys in high school, like, I don't know who really liked me. There was a few boys here and there where I would be like, okay, this boy likes me, and he would tell me, or whatever the case was, but I never really felt like, ooh, the boys, you know, I never felt like that. I would see like the basketball player girls and think they were cute. I always thought the boys were cute, but I didn't think the boys saw me. I didn't really necessarily think anybody saw me like that. That was interesting because I didn't have like a tumultuous high school career. There was a point in the time where I wanted to drop out of high school, but then I went to live with my uncle, who's like the man in my life. He's always been the man in my life because my father always fell short of fatherhood. He was a heroin addict, and he actually died of a heroin overdose in 2017. And I never really felt, I felt loved, but I never really felt like he was present as he could as a heroin addict. But I never really felt like my dad was there. But that's not the story. That's the story of a million black girls. So oftentimes I usually find myself discounting my experience because it wasn't the worst of experiences. That's so unfair. It affected me, period. So I go to move with my uncle. I go to Brush. I transferred it. I go to Shaker, then I go to Brush. And again, the boys aren't necessarily clamoring over me or like crawling over themselves to get to me. But the boys who liked me, you know, and they were very intentional about it, and they told me. And I find that now as an adult, as I'm dating and have dated men, I still only go for the guy who's direct. You have to be direct with me. I don't do innuendo. I don't do direct speech is flirting to me. You know, we can be cute afterwards, but you have to tell me very straight up. And I recognize in hindsight, I've always been like that, because the boyfriends I did have came at me very directly. So, you know, I don't have this thing where I'm like, oh, I don't know how I ended up with women from that aspect, because I know that I just didn't have a lot of boyfriends, and I didn't feel comfortable around boys. But see, I have to unpack that, because that discomfort around boys grew into discomfort around men. And I had to ask myself, like, well, why is this feeling here? So I started thinking about, like, what happened? Who told me what? And in my last video, I explained to you that I grew up around women who also didn't have pleasant experiences with men. And let me not even say also, they just didn't have pleasant experiences with men. So in them telling me in what I know was an attempt to keep me safe from harm, they gave me programming that kept me safe from their harm. I never had an opportunity to understand what that meant for me. All I knew is that my mother had been abused, this lady had been abused, this woman had experienced this lady told me men ain't shit. All I knew was that. And I think that there's a third category of woman. So when you think about the conditioning young girls get, or the trauma surrounding their fathers or men, women do one or two things. They go and they become promiscuous, and they have all these ways that they express themselves in the world looking for love, or they completely shut off and become cold and distant and very hard and hard to get to their heart. There's a third category, women who go choose women. Now, I believe I fall in that third category. I've never been promiscuous, no judgment. I've never been cold and closed off. I've never been like that. I did, however, find comfort in women. I found safety there. And I recognize that safety and fulfillment aren't the same thing. Just because you feel safe, just because you feel loved. And it's hard to unpack that, because it's like, but I feel safe, I feel loved, I feel cared for, I feel respected. This should equal fulfillment. That does not equal fulfillment. It did not equal fulfillment for me. So I go through that in my high school career where I don't really feel seen, don't really have boyfriends, blah, blah, blah. And then I go to college and I meet my first boyfriend that is like, this is the boy that took my virginity. Brandon. I won't say his last name, but his name was Brandon. And when Brandon approached me in the elevator, again, very direct, Brandon approached me in the elevator going up to, we had co-ed dorms. So he was going to his floor, I was going to mine. And I never will forget, he got on the elevator and I just thought he was the cutest thing. He's still cute. He's still a nice looking man. But he was brown skinned and had dimples and this curly hair. He was just, oh my God. And this boy turned around and was talking to me about liking me and flirting. And I'm like, this was different, because this wasn't high school. I was on my own. And this boy who I would normally see, because I have a type, this boy that I would normally see and be like, ooh, he was actually interested in me. Hindsight, 20, 30 years of hindsight, or not 30, but 20 years of hindsight tells me that that feeling of, oh my God, me, is that feeling of invisibility and inadequacy popping up, feeling like I'm not worthy of this boy talking to me, like, oh, I can't believe it. That's not okay. But that is what I had at the time. Anyway, Brandon was really cute, really fun. I was 19, he was 19 or 18 or something. And I fell in love with this boy. And we had like a typical college relationship. He, bought me was it Papa John's? No, who had them? Marco's? Anyway, we used to order pizza and subs and watch movies. It was so normal. And I'm bringing up the normalcy of it all because I need to highlight that I still have not mentioned trauma from a man in my personal experience. I've expressed to you that my father had these issues, but in my adult mind, I can reconcile the fact that my father was a heroin addict, and I can extract that from my experience and say, what did he give me outside of that? My father gave me love, and he sang to me. He had a song just for me. He loved me. He did my hair. He cooked for me. And my father was really supportive and loving and poured into me verbally. My father always used to tell me how beautiful I was, how my father really was my daddy. So his addiction aside, his addiction is not my trauma. His addiction is his trauma. So usually if you have that addiction piece, you'll be a victim of the trauma from that trauma. I wasn't, not from my father. My father never inflicted trauma on me in a way that was outside of him just not having the capacity, which is traumatic, but still not direct assault on me. So I get into college and I have this very normal experience. I lose my virginity. He cheats on me with my roommate. But again, that's not traumatic. That's just what stupid teenage boys do. That's what men do sometimes. Like, nothing still has happened that has made me like, oh my God, men are terrible. But I'm still walking through life with this very innate unease around men and boys. So I leave college at 19. I don't go back. And I come back not a virgin. And I have about a 6-month period of where I'm just like, I'm gonna figure this thing out with boys, with men. And so I have sex with several men, 19 to 20. And I'm just being transparent. Like I was just trying to figure it out. But it never felt comfortable. I never felt present. I never I didn't ever feel not anxious. I always felt anxious, always felt unsettled and uneasy and uncomfortable. But the men that I've encountered, none of them did anything to me. I swear to God, I met the nicest guys. I always met the nicest guys. They were respectful. Nobody was mean to me. There was a guy named Marcus. Marcus was amazing. Marcus looked like David Banner at the time. Marcus looked like David Banner. And I was just like, oh, another one. Like, I like him. That's my type. Marcus was so sweet to me. And I just couldn't be with Marcus. I don't know why. Marcus ain't never did nothing to me. In the midst of all that, I'm 19 and I go to the gay bar for the first time and I meet my first girlfriend. She was 30 when I was 19 years old. Let's call her Jay. I meet Jay like on a Saturday. That was the day I went to the bar. The next following week, I'm basically living with her. And if you are watching this and you are a woman who is with women, you understand the concept of the U-Haul lesbian. So basically, I move in with this woman for the most part, and this feels normal. This feels natural. This feels good. This doesn't feel scary. This doesn't feel uneasy. But I don't know enough about myself yet. Even as a young woman, I don't know enough about myself to understand fulfillment for myself. I'm dealing with all these moving parts, but none of them are cohesive. None of them come together to make one clear thing that I need. All I know is I need to feel safe. I don't even know that I need to feel safe. I don't even know that I need to feel loved in that way. Like, safety was what I subconsciously sought out. Love is what I subconsciously sought out. And I'm exploring all of these things with my limited concept of what love is. I don't even realize I need protection. I don't even understand that, because, and let me be clear, I don't understand protection from a man. I don't understand it. I've never experienced it. All I have is my uncle, and he's been the only protector for me, but I don't even associate it at the time with there's a man in my life who loves me and cares for me, and here's where things get tricky. Here's where you might unfollow me. But his role is to protect me. That is who he is. That is how he is wired. That is biologically his makeup, is to protect me. I can't even make that correlation. I just know I love my uncle. I'm crazy about him. I'm still close to my uncle to this day. I just know this much, but I don't have the wiring to put all of these things together and make it make sense so that I can make more well-informed decisions from less of a hurt place. I don't even know how hurt I am, because I'm resilient, and all I know is like, no, I know how to, I'm emotionally resilient. Again, I'm using language that I have now. Back then, I'm just like, I keep it moving. I keep it pushing. So I get with this woman, and I have all these components of masculinity. She's a butch woman, and she is, for the most part, pretty masculine. Then sex get involved, and I don't understand fulfillment sexually. All I understand is sexual urge. That is not the same thing. That is just, I am 19 with a sex drive of some sort. So I'm with this lady, and at this time I'm going through this religious thing, because I was raised up in the church, Southern Baptist, raised up in the church, and I'm confronted now with, okay, I'm with a woman, but now I'm gonna go to hell. So I take this lady through the ringer. I left her a few times. We was together 4 years, maybe almost 5. I take this woman through it. I left her several times, and when I say left, I mean she came home from work sometimes and my things were gone. One of those times I had got on a Greyhound bus and moved to Detroit to be with my sister, my older sister. And this entire time, I'm getting new messaging about how I am at that time, who I am at that time with women. I'm getting messaging like, that ain't it. My older sister always used to be like, that ain't it. No, Don't do that. And at that time, I'd go ahead and say she was mildly homophobic, but we all have space to grow. She's not like that now, and I think that her experiences, whatever they were, I don't know what they were, had informed her. So she had her own ideas. But even in that, I went to Detroit. I started going to a Kojic church. I'm like, I'm gonna go to church. I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna be this God-fearing woman. I'm gonna be this person. I'm carrying around Bibles. Like, this was an ongoing thing. I'm like, okay. I still went back to my ex though. Still went back to Jay, because one of the reasons why I'm rolling with the theme of Jesus did not save me, God was involved, and the devil is in the details. That's exactly what the thing is. I have tried to leave this lifestyle for Jesus numerous times. Trust me, I've had Jesus on the main line. He's always been on time. I've always always went to Jesus in the first stage of my life, like, okay, well, they told me that Jesus is gonna help me with this. And then I had somebody else tell me, oh, well, no, something real deep that I was told was, you really need to get out of that space, because something about sin becomes 7 times harder to leave or something. Y'all know how the Bible got numerology in it. But I did not take heed to any of that, because you couldn't tell me that this wasn't who I was. And to be fair, it was who I was at that time, but it was faulty data that I was functioning off of. So I run Jay through the ringer, because I'm like, no, I'm not going to hell for you. No, no, no. Jesus is going to get me out of this. I'm going to be all right. I'm gonna be all right, and I'm gay. I'm with women. Because at this point, I done tried Jesus several times. I have asked Jesus to please, I tried to pray it away. Please rid me of this thing that's gonna send me to fire and brimstone. It's not happening. I am still pulled to these women. So I go back to Jay. Me and Jay break up, and I move into my own apartment. I'm condensing this. But I go back and I moved to my own apartment in East Cleveland, Ohio. I'm leaving a party one night, a pride party, and I run into this lesbian couple. Let's call them V and T. Oh, so I run into V and T one night when I'm leaving this party. T is the femme, V is the dom. T's in the passenger, the dom's driving. I'm getting in my car. They're like, where you going? Why you leaving? So me and T, we start talking like, oh, you so pretty. You know how feminine women are. We see each other. We like, girl, you so pretty, blah, 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 blah. And I tell them I'm leaving. Me and T exchange numbers. Because she's like, oh, we got to hang out sometimes. You got to come by the house. And Monday morning roll around. I get a private phone call. It's V. It's the dom joint on my line. And I'm like, don't you got a girlfriend? And she like, don't worry about that. I'll take care of that. That's on me. And I'm like, I'm 22 at this point. I'm like, okay, I'm young and fine. And what's happening? I'm a young Sagittarius woman, and I'm with all the shits. I don't know no better. I don't have any womanhood training. I don't have anybody to help me navigate womanhood. I didn't have many people. I had women and people that helped me survive adolescence and get through my teen years. But as far as someone sitting me down and explaining certain things to me as a rites of passage as a young lady, I did not have that. I have formulated, even to this day, the person you see now has really just been me forging my way through and learning from my environment. I make some people uncomfortable because I'm so transparent. And oftentimes it's like, don't be telling all your business and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's not even it for me. For me, I have only learned through expressing myself out loud, getting feedback from my environment, parceling through all of it, and attaining knowledge and wisdom through that. I have survived by being transparent. by just saying like, what do you think about this? Like, hey, this happened to me, and let me tell you this part of my life. Has this happened to you? And what did you do? Like, that is how I have learned. I have refined my process over and over and over. Life is a full distillation process. By the time we die, we are the purest essence of ourselves, no matter when that time comes. But I am constantly refining and constantly distilling my process. Even when you think you know everything about me, you don't. Because to be transparent is not to be vulnerable. To be transparent is to be transparent. By the time you hear the part I'm transparent about, I've been vulnerable about it in private. And that's a whole other process and a whole other set of systems that I have to work through to be me. So I meet this woman. She's older. She's probably like 55 now, I think. She's probably like that. I don't know how old she is now, but it's older. So at the time, she's much older than me, and she got some money and some status, and like, I am just taken aback by it. I am vulnerable to it because nobody told me. Nobody helped me understand. And it's like, even at that age, you know right from wrong, but you willing to risk more. You're less risk averse. You're like, and your ego's involved, and you're like, oh, she want me, you know, like that kind of stupid shit. So this shit goes on 8 months. I'm in a whole relationship with this lady, and we are really towing the line. We ain't even towing the line. We're stepping over the line in a lot of ways. But again, she's really butch. She's really masculine, very masculine. And I'm like, this is a part of solidifying what feels natural and normal, this masculinity. I can't say that I've ever been attracted to women sexually. Let me help you understand that. The women I have been with have always been masculine in a way where they didn't necessarily want me touching them like women. They don't want that feminine feeling. And that has helped me circumvent the conversation about what I really like sexually and who I really am sexually. I don't have to touch these women in this way, and they're touching me in a certain way that I'm responsive to. So there's no confrontation with like, okay, Londa, is this even fulfilling for you? It's pleasure, but it's not fulfillment. And fulfillment is its own thing. Fulfillment is full of all those other things, but those things on their own do not equal fulfillment, if that makes sense. So again, but now I'm digging into the area of I'm playing second fiddle to somebody, and this is becoming mildly, it is hurtful. It's not abusive. That lady was not abusive to me. However, I was being taken advantage of. I do know that. And the nuance of that is, it's the way that people take advantage of people. It wasn't because I'm Lana and it was personal. It's just what humans do sometimes. And so I fell into that. And so, you know, I finally left and moved to Richmond, Virginia to be with my next ex. That's Vaughn. Rest in peace. So I get with Vaughn and I drive from Cleveland, Ohio to Richmond, Virginia. And I go be with this mentally unstable woman. And I didn't, because my mother, I'm going to have a whole episode on my mother. So that's why I haven't gone into her too much yet. But my mother suffered from bipolar disorder. She was a recovering addict, alcoholism, and she was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and suffered bipolar disorder. So I spent so much of my life wanting her to love me and having to accept her as she was if I wanted her to love me, with no boundaries around how I experienced that I then fall into this situation with this woman who actually is abusive. She can't help it though, because she's not well. I didn't know that. She didn't even know that at that time. She didn't realize how sick she was. And so I accepted a lot of things. To this day, there are people who know me and know her and knew us together. To this day, There are people who knew me and knew her and knew us together, and I remember people just being baffled about, like, how am I with this lady? So that goes on, and my mom dies in 2012. I have the wind knocked out of my chest, and I say, I don't know if I could do this. We gotta move. So we leave Maryland, we move to Atlanta. I moved to Atlanta, things don't get any better. I meet another woman, because I eventually left Vaughn, and I couldn't do it. I was numb, and I don't know if you know what numbness feels like, but numbness is actually a feeling, and I don't wish that on anybody, ever, 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 ever. I don't wish numbness on anybody. But so we moved to Atlanta, and I get the idea that I just can't do it, and I leave her. I'm homeless for a little bit, and homeless is such a dramatic word, but I literally just I was staying with people. I lived in a staged home. When you're about to sell a house and you have people come in and put furniture in it so it looks like a home. I lived in a staged home until I got my apartment. But in the midst of all that, I met a woman, let's call her M. And she really played in my face. She told me that she had left her girlfriend. They had been broke up 8 months. It was really like 8 weeks. And it just was a whirlwind. And I don't realize how traumatic that experience is for me because I'm numb. And at this point, my numbness, it's like a callus. You just keep going. Like I can keep going. I don't feel none of this. Eventually I get my own apartment and I start to somewhat experience life, but it's struggly because I ain't got no money. And I mean struggly. I meet another woman who, now this joint was right up my alley. She was 6 feet and 200 something pounds and just was built like a wall. And I was crazy about it. Our birthdays was a day apart, so that was bound to drown. But she moves in with me, and she had lost her job. Listen. Oof. Eventually things just fell apart, and I decided to let it all go. So I moved to Texas. I drive to Texas, stay with my niece. I'm in Texas dating men because I'm like, I have to understand this, because I always have this attraction. The attraction is there. The feeling, the draw, the calling is there. But the fear is so much bigger. The uneasiness is so much bigger. And the guys in Austin were weird. Some of that is not me. Some of that was like, So, then you fast forward to 2014. That was all in about, I moved to Atlanta from Texas. To Texas from Atlanta in 2014. And in 2014, I reconnect with somebody that I knew from my past. One of the most beautiful human beings I ever met in my life. At the moment, I won't go too much into details about that, but this person was just one of the largest positive influences and impacts on my life that I've ever experienced. No lie. No matter where we are at this point and how that person feels about me at this point, I will always love and care for her. And I will never forget the ways in which she poured into me and created a life for me that I could heal from all the pain. I had a lot of pain, and I didn't necessarily understand it though. And I be feeling so bad. Like, you don't know how you showing up sometimes because it's just who you are. You don't know that it's dysfunctional. You don't know that it's not quite right. You don't know because you just want love. And I've never been a malicious person. Like, I only show up like with an open heart and just like innocent is not the word I'm looking for, but there's a part of me that has always just been like very pure. Like, I don't want nothing from you but love. However, I recognize survival, and now I recognize love differently. I understand love differently, and I could probably recognize that in all my relations with women, I wasn't necessarily seeking love. I was seeking safety, seeking protection. That's the theme. And then I knew that I was capable of love with my limited idea of it, even up until 2014. I was playing house for so long. I didn't understand the deeper concepts about some of this stuff. I showed up with what I had, and I, in hindsight, realized it wasn't a lot. So anybody who's ever been with me, I've never felt like I showed up for them in the way they showed up for me. In hindsight, that has created in me a desire to be whole when I meet someone, because I recognize that those women have loved me in spite of myself. And on this side of things, that don't feel good. People always think they want unconditional love. No, you don't. You don't want unconditional love. You want love with conditions. Otherwise, it turns into a very lopsided situation. The lopsidedness will show itself. For some people, maybe it's financial. For some people, it's emotional, spiritual, whatever. But you don't want unconditional love. You want love with conditions, and you want someone who has patience and understanding and enough love to help you change your condition. Otherwise, don't be with them. And that might sound very crass, but it's true. I don't ever in my life again want unconditional love unless it's a situation completely out of my hands. I don't want nobody to up and leave me if I'm dying from cancer. But even that's a conversation, but that's another thing. But I want someone who will always choose them if I'm not doing the best job at choosing them too. And I didn't recognize that at all because I needed so much love. I was in a deficit. I was in the red. And so you don't even realize how much you've taken from a person because you need it. You need it so much, you don't realize you're taking more than you're giving. I eventually started realizing, because I got in a healthy relationship and in a healthy space, that I was taking more than I was giving. And I was so scattered about trying to put my pieces together. Once I realized it, I'm like, oh shit, who am I? And when I started mapping out who I actually am, those parts and those pieces, I can only do that in a healthy space. So thank God for unconditional love. But oh my God, I will never subject anyone to a me that I haven't dealt with first ever again in my life. I started putting these pieces together. Okay, I'm healthy. Like I'm not really like surviving and scratching and surviving and trying to figure out. I'm not doing all of that. So now who is this person in this space? When I started piecing those pieces together, I'm like, oh man, something ain't adding up. Now mind you, the something that's not adding up is a total of all those parts from all of those things. Never feeling fulfilled. I'm starting to realize like I can't show up sexually because why? Like what's wrong with me? I'm talking about no sex drive. None. Like none. And my person ain't deserved that. And my person ain't deserved that. And it really made me turn in like, damn, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I show up? I'm happy. I'm finally happy. I'm with somebody who I'm attracted to, who's attracted to me. I'm not broke. You know, I ain't got a lot of money, but I'm not broke finally. Like, life is finally feeling normal. I'm finally feeling normal. Why can't I show up? So I start putting these pieces together. And so what I start doing is putting the pieces together and just trying to put them together in action. I try to learn it and apply it. Still nothing. So my father dies. And now I recognized that I hadn't had to deal with my sex drive in that way because I would just be like, something is wrong with them. Of course I don't want to have sex. Something is wrong with them. But then you get with somebody where that's not the case. You don't have I can't point a finger. And so what happens? The finger points back at me like, well, what is wrong? What's going on? So, I mean, pick myself apart. I'm picking myself apart like I'm broken. I went to the doctor, like, why don't I have a sex drive? I'm looking into like, what could possibly be? So then that's 2012, 2014, and all this healing takes place, and I'm still running into this same issue. So 2017, my father dies, and the sex drive really just was like, whew. And I'm like, oh no, like I can't. But grief. 2018, my grandmother dies. In 2019, Vaughn jumps off a bridge, commits suicide. And I'm just like, this is somebody's punking me. Then 2020, y'all all know what happened in 2020. 3 months after I got sick in 2020, I had lost 30 pounds in about 3 months, and I think I lost my mind a little bit with some of that weight. I think I hit like a rock bottom. Still wanting and desiring to feel and give this love, because now I'm in this. Mind you, I got here in 2014. It's 2020. I'm here. I'm in it. And I love this person, and I'm going to marry this person. And we get married. And this person is amazing still. And I don't know that level of tolerance in my life. I have nothing but respect for that person. But I also know that I was still experiencing the cognitive dissonance. I could not reconcile what I now know are my core values and beliefs with how I was living. And it began to feel very unfair to my person, because my person has done nothing but love me, support me, cater to me, take care of me, make sure I'm straight all the time. So now I'm looking at myself, I'm looking funny in the light, because again, and at that time, I didn't even necessarily have all of the language or the understanding fully, but I really knew I had these thoughts, you know, like I would see men and I was like, man, no, it's not men. I would see men, but I would see couples. I would see a man and a woman together and be like, I can't even fathom functioning like that. But it stopped being like fear. It started being like, why can't I fathom functioning like that? Why is that so outside of my scope? When I feel the things I feel inside, when I yearn for this masculine energy, when I yearn for this masculine presence and safety and protection, because now I understand myself as a woman better, I understand men better, and I understand the dynamic, the healthy dynamic between man and woman. I have a very clear understanding of what that looks like, because I've encountered people, I've listened to people. I understand things differently now, and I'm like, oh. And so I just start looking at myself like, why can't I get it together? I'm like, I have this person that loves me and I love them and we're great together. So what's the problem? 2021, I do shrooms for the first time. Oh baby. I do shrooms. Excuse me. I do shrooms and I'm like, the shrooms don't even address the sexuality until the end of the trip. It was about a 4 to 5 hour trip. And when I tell you that thing wrapped up some trauma for me, I mean, cleared it out. Can't believe it. And at the end of it, because the way I experience shrooms gonna tell you when the trip is over. You don't tell shrooms when the trip is over. I get into bed after the trip, and I have this one final visual and it is an image of the Venus Hottentot. You've seen the Sarah Bartman, but this the Venus Hottentot, and it is like paper dolls, and they're black and white and black and white and black and white. And for whatever reason, when I laid in the bed with that image popped up after I laid in the bed, and the message was, "This ain't for you." I couldn't make sense of it in the moment, because I'm like, what does that image have to do with anything? I now recognize that if you think about the Venus Hottentot statue, it's always a symbol of femininity and fertility. And it was just clear. That was 2021. That was August of 2021. When it became that clear to me, then I had a real problem on my hands, because I can't ignore this now. I can't ignore it. So, but I still sit in my cognitive dissonance and say, yes, I can. I love this person. This is my person. It don't matter none of that. This is my person. But then womanhood for me is kicking in. I'm 30. I'll be 40 this November. This is all happening right at the stage of my life where a woman's sex drive is supposed to be kicking, and all of this stuff, and my hormones are doing this thing in my body, because biology is always going to win. That's another conversation for another day. But biology starts winning. And I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? I feel this confidence and this embodied feeling and da 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 da. And in turn, it starts becoming frustration in my relationship on my end. And I have to temper that frustration, because this person has done nothing to me but be good. I'm not even frustrated with her. I'm not even mad at her. I am probably more upset or frustrated with what, I won't say what she represents, but what I'm trying to say is that her being there was a reminder of what I was missing. It's so hard to say out loud. Because as we get older, we only become women. You only become more of whatever you are. I was only becoming more of a woman. So was she. And that's nobody's fault. Nobody did anything wrong. This story is hard to tell, because it's hard to tell. And I always want to protect and honor and respect that person, and I always will. You'll never hear me say nothing crazy. Ain't nothing crazy to say, but you'll never hear me say nothing crazy or disrespectful, or this part of the story I'm telling will be just this part of the story, but this is an overall thing. I'm just expressing to you how I got here and how I ended up leaving that marriage or that situation. I start recognizing these feelings. I get into therapy, because we're at this point frustrated about the sex drive. I cannot do it. I just can't do it, like sex. And I get into therapy, and I get into EMDR therapy, and I start really unpacking a lot of stuff. I'm still microdosing mushrooms. This is 2022 now. And eventually, at the end of 2022, it just all came to a head. I couldn't hold it no more. But I didn't even recognize that I was there until I was there. And after that, I handled a bunch of things wrong. I did a bunch of things wrong, probably. Maybe, I don't know, some of it. I could have done better. But fear is so tricky, because my default is to feel like I got it all the time. I always feel like, oh no, I can handle this. I'm expressive. I have words. I know how to use my words. I have language for this. And if you know me now, you know that's exactly how I am. I have a reason for everything. I have logic. I have rationale. But in having to really boldly step into my truth in the way I did, I had to exercise some things I didn't know I had. I had emotional blind spots. So a lot of that experience, I showed up very emotionally immature, and it forced me to grow fast, because I was confronted with all of those things. And you don't even and to this, even to the very last minute, that person in my life was solid enough in themselves that they held my ass to the fire, held my feet to the fire. They didn't let up. They told me the truth about me, and they exposed me to me. And again, I needed it. I needed that. And to the end, that person gave me honesty and love. And it was difficult in the end, but it happened. And I left. And I left with the intention of being ready for my husband. Telling that part of the story just gave me I feel tense and tight. But that's difficult to say out loud because that was my person. And nothing in this world could have told me that it wasn't. And that's the hard part about walking into your truth. You don't even know it until you know it. It becomes evident. And then you like, shit, I gotta make all these changes. I have to pivot. And I have to recalibrate. On this side of things, I had a rough transition as far as emotionally. I was nervous and anxious. I'm like, I'm on my own. I'm alone. Oh my God. And men, like, what I'm about to do with these? What? But I have been outside. And this is the part that I'm going to get into. This is what this series is for. Is understanding that on the other side of that difficulty, there is a power and a freedom and an embodiment and a comfort and a strength you didn't even realize. I am the most me I have ever been in my life. I am the most, my software is up to date. It is like when I left and I got my footing, all of this backlog got cleared out. I feel like everything from this point internally, the growth has happened at warp speed. And somehow I have been navigating dating without getting my heart broken. And that's not to say that that can't happen. But what I recognize is like the 20 years that I was with women feel like I was in a bubble just watching everything. I have observed. I have listened. I have communicated. I have asked questions. I have studied this side of things. Part of that was passive learning, simply because it was truly something I've always wanted for myself. So I've always paid attention to men and women together. I've always paid attention to when men speak. I listen to men. I have always paid attention to women too, though, when they speak of their hurt and their pain. But what I've had to do lately, and not lately, I mean in the last, almost year, I listen to women in healthy relationships. I listen to healthy women. That's not passing judgment on women who have had trauma and pain and all of this. That's not it. But I knew what I needed, and I knew what I wanted on this side of things if I ever got here. So somehow I have this skill set in dating. I've had this skill set in dating that has just been wild. And I think most of it is just I'm very direct in my communication now. It only took me to see how me not being as honest as possible impacted someone I cared for and hurt them, because essentially I was lying about stuff. But it wasn't and but negates whatever you said. What I'm trying to say is that I was just lying because I was scared. I was lying because I didn't really know how to tell the truth. And it wasn't right, but it also wasn't malicious. And lies hurt. Lies are painful. Lies, deception is deception. And I'm not a deceitful person. I just wasn't mature. And I just didn't tell the truth about some things. And I refused. After that, And after I seen how it made me feel, because let's forget about how lying to other people makes them feel when they find out you lied. I felt like a trash human being. Just, oh my God. I would be like, I can't even believe this. I can't even believe I'm this horrible of a person. And I know I'm not. So I vowed after that since life is always going to confront me, and I'm always going to have to confront something in life, I was always going to lead with the truth. And I've been doing that. And that has been the most beautiful revelation of all of this, is that you can tell the truth. Either people gonna love you or they not. They gonna stick with you or they not. And when it pertains to dating, particularly dating men, you can go. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm gonna come to you full throttle me, 100%. You gonna get my long paragraphs that I text. You gonna get my full emotional self. You gonna get my ups and my, like, all of it fresh up front on the table. And so far, I have been all right. Because the truth is, after I put myself in a position to embrace my womanhood and my femininity from a balanced and divinely ordered standpoint, I'm okay. This series is going to be hopefully not controversial, but this series is going to be me unpacking that entire process. That's the story, right? That's the Cliff's Notes. But there's so many little pieces in there that I'm going to highlight about love and how I understand love now, how I arrived here, about healing and how it happens. I am proud to say that I am healed from some things. We always talk about, when we look on social media and stuff, we always talk about, oh, I gotta heal, or I'm healing, or don't do this until you. No. Live your life. Find where you're healed. You healed in some aspect. I'm not going to live my life a patient. I'm not going to live my life always needing to do something. I've done enough. I'm tired. I get to experience life now. I get to be myself fully and wholly. And I don't even want to say I robbed myself. I had to go through the crucible to get here. It's been a long 20 years. I have gone so long unfulfilled in so many ways. And some women might look at me crazy when I say this, but experiencing men in the way I have in the last few months has been some of the most healing energy I've ever experienced. I am a better person now. I'm a better woman. And I'm more in touch with my womanhood now than I ever have been with women. That's just how it shook out. I feel so whole and full and complete and happy and balanced, and I don't know how to explain that without maybe even offending some women, because there is a group of women that walk around like men can't be trusted. They not nothing. They ain't shit. They ain't never gonna be shit. They all horrible. This is why men don't deserve nice things. I don't believe none of that. And I've been outside and I've been dating. I have been dating. And when I say that, that's not, I haven't been having sex with all these men. I have been dating. The true aspect of dating. I have been on dates. And not even dating one person in particular at one point. You know what I mean? Like, I was dating multiple people, different nights, sometimes 2-3 times in a day. I'll go on dates, go to dinner, go to lunch, whatever. Having a ball. But I have acquired some information that I'd like to share. I have a formula for dating that I created. I have been the experiment. I have allowed myself to be the experiment with dating and expressing yourself as a woman. And one of the first things that I told myself is that I would not hold back me, because I did that for 20 years. I don't have the band. I can't do it no more. I literally am out of that realm. And showing up fully authentic. I don't know where the last video cut off. I told y'all that I'm just doing this the best way I can. Long story short, I have a lot to share. I've been dating down. Like, and if you in the community, you know down mean, you know what it means. But I've been dating, and I've been dating men. I've dated some wonderful men. I've had great experiences. Black men are the salt of the earth, and to me. And call me green, but to know me is to know I'm not green. And I think that's something, being with women for whatever reason made me feel like I don't know shit. I don't know that I have felt this empowered in my knowledge of self and in my navigation of the world around me. I don't know that I've ever felt this present in my body to where I'm like, no, that's not gonna work. I trust me. I don't have to trust other people. I trust myself to know other people. And that's helped me a lot in my dating experiences. But I got out of the lifestyle, and I can say that I never was fully committed to it. I was committed to people. I was never fully committed to being a lesbian. I just was committed to the people I loved and cared for, and I wasn't gonna not be committed to them. This is a hard conversation. It's a heavy conversation. But, and like, you know what? I'm learning YouTube. I'm learning how to make these videos. I'm learning how to do all this. So right now, these are just like journal entries. So if they feel scattered, let me know. I could use all the feedback possible. I really want to know how I could be better at this. I'm getting myself together with the technical part as far as like editing and doing all this. And, you know, I got my little thing here so I can see myself. But Jesus ain't saved me. God was involved, and the devil is in the details. So this series is all about the details. Most likely I won't be speaking on my marriage and divorce anymore, because my story is much bigger than any one particular experience. There are parts of me that grew at these different stages, though, that I will mention because they're important. But please don't think this is about one relationship or anything like that, because it's not. This is solely about me and me finding myself and finally meeting myself and finally integrating who I was, who I'm becoming, and who I am. All of those pieces coming together and making life make more sense. Please don't feel like this is some tea. Like, it's not. I'm not telling you my business. I'm telling you my testimony. And if you have any sort of relationship with God in any way, and I mean God, whatever God is for you, this is a testimony. This is a testimony not about how you live your life as far as if you feel like that's who you are. This is a testimony about pain informing your decision making, trauma informing your decision making, and how you wrap other people up in it and how it impacts them, and all the shit you still have to go through when you don't choose you and when you don't choose to confront your own stuff. This ain't got nothing to do with nobody else. Please take it as such. Another thing, I'm putting these disclaimers at the end. When I begin to share my core beliefs, I'm nervous that I'll lose people or friends, or even saying that out loud makes me anxious, because I have a set of core beliefs that I've always had. Always. This ain't new. Some of this stuff. No, the core beliefs aren't new. However, in living the way I was living was in direct opposition to all of to most of my core beliefs. And so when I start to share them, for some people, it might be surprising. And it might be, I don't know how it'll be for everybody, but I am who I am. My heart is still the same. If I loved you before this, I'm gonna love you after this. I don't have no judgment. I don't have no nothing. I can only speak to what my experience is and how I am living my life now. And the reason I'm even sharing the core beliefs is because I need you to understand the level of alignment I'm existing in at this point, and how my life is unfolding with pure alignment. And for me, you know, at the end of it all, and again, not focusing on the last relationship I was in, but an accumulation of those relationships at the end of that 20-year span, I found myself feeling spiritually void. I didn't have nothing for God. And I am slowly but surely returning to a relationship with God. But I began to pray really hard. You know, towards the end of everything, I began to really seek God and understand God. And I'm still figuring that out, still reacquainting myself with God. But I can't express to you how it feels like there is a weight lifted off of my shoulders, though. And that's why I say Jesus ain't saved me, because I tried it with Jesus. That's not a diss to Jesus. I tried it with Jesus. I had to understand so many things first. And I had to take the burden off of Jesus. And we are taught in Christianity, I don't subscribe to Christianity, right? Not now, but you're taught, like, lay your burdens on Christ. And it's like, nah, because then what I'm doing, what work am I doing if I'm laying all of this on him? That's not how that works. I have to confront the thing that's the burden. If I'm in my right mind and I have the faculties to do it, I can't lay this on nobody. I can't blame it on the devil, and I can't blame it on God. Like, hell was within me. The hell that I was fearing, I ended up living. It wasn't a destination. It was in the path. It was built into the road. I removed the hell from myself. There's so many people that's gonna hear that and take that completely wrong, but I realize I'm exposing myself to that, so it's fine. But I removed the hell from my life. And the hell ain't other people. The hell's me. It was inside. And we all have a personal hell. I can just identify what my personal hell was. I had people giving me heaven, and I need you to understand that. I had people around me who loved me so much, they were giving me heaven. But hell was within me. So it always felt like hell. Mild hell sometimes, spicy hell other times, but it always felt like hell. Because you got to get the hell out of you before you can really understand what your paradise is. And I understand my paradise now because I'm existing in it. And I still got stuff I'm working through. Still, rebuilding my finances, building my credit. Like, this ain't, life don't become easier. You just become better at being alive. I stick to that. But I don't have hell. So this feels all different. So follow me down the path, because I'm going to share. Now I have enough data where I feel comfortable with sharing. And eventually, by the time I get to the part where I'm at right now, that'll be much later, where I tell you about where I am right now. And it's great. And some of you know, only 3 some of y'all know where I'm at, and I'm happy. I'm happy. Oh, I'm happy. I got heaven. I got heaven inside of me. I got paradise inside of me. But like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and bear with me with the editing and just bear with me. This is raw and unfiltered. I had met a couple guys who were into audio visual stuff, and they're like, oh, well, I'll help you, blah blah blah. Child. But I could probably pick up the phone and call them, and they would help me. That's the kick, is that that's another conversation for another day. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. So today I got my recording going on the camera, and my podcast thing acted stupid, so I'll just have to record this next episode or another time, but I'm gonna upload this tonight. I'm gonna try to get as many videos out because I've been sitting on this stuff for years, and I just needed to wait until it felt right, and it never quite felt right, and also had some learning to do with all of my equipment. So like now God put it on my heart through, I had two conversations yesterday with two women who one was a stay-at-home mom, black woman, stay-at-home mom and wife, and the other one is a woman who comes from my exact same circumstance, and we feel the same way about a lot of things. And I got a lot of affirmation yesterday that I needed, and so I'm just gonna share it. So tell me what you think. If you got questions, I'll answer them. Send me your testimonies. Tell me what your life is like. What's your hell? What's your hell you carrying around in you, and how do you feel like you can rid yourself of it? How can you replace that and pivot and exist in your paradise? That's what I want to know. So I love y'all. I'm gonna go now. It is no fancy exit. I'm gonna just like peace out. So like, bye.